Yo, what's going on, guys? Today's video, I wanted to talk about mental health. To hell with your mental health. To be honest with you, I'm hearing a lot of stuff about mental health all over the internet or whatever, and that's all people seem to ever want to talk about. And to be honest with you, like I don't care, and nobody else cares. If you have a legitimate what's it called, chemical imbalance, that's one thing. You need to get help, or you need some sort of chemical regulation, homeostasis or whatever. That's one thing. But too many people living in a modern era with more money and access to wealth than we have ever experienced in the history of mankind are talking about mental health. And it's crazy because it's like nothing is wrong with you. A lot of these people, they wear these psychological illnesses or these psychological conditions or whatever, like a heart, like badges of honor, and it's crazy to me. And I've fallen victim to that shit too, and it doesn't help. As a matter of fact, it makes it worse. The more you talk about your problems and not about your solutions, the worse you get. Like it really does destroy your mind. Like and this dawned on me basically today. It's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, but it really hit me today. It was just like, to what extent is my negative thought pattern a result of bullshit conversations I had about my mental health? It probably countless, because it's encouraged in our society, and that's what we're always talking about. And then we take that stuff in. And then you think about it, like there are dudes like Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and this guy survived the Holocaust, and he was in a Nazi internment camp. He saw people's like toes being chopped off and people being tortured and every something crazy. I think it was this story where there was this one story where the Nazi guard was going to every 10th person and blowing their brains out. And then one story, the Nazi guard came to the one of the 10th people, and then they recognized him from his village, and he skipped him and shot the 11th guy. And I'm saying that because the shit was so random. It's like you never know. Like those people, the Jews, when they were living their lives out in Central and Western Europe, like they didn't know in a handful of years or whatever they were going to be rounded up and put in concentration camps and killed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you think those people were talking about their mental health when they were in the fucking concentration camps? No, they were trying to get food, man. They were trying to survive. They were trying not to get killed. And the same goes true for the slaves. The same goes true for the Armenians. The same goes true for basically any people, which is all of mankind that has been messed with and found themselves in a nightmare. And we in America, in the Western world, like the shit that we get worked up about is crazy to me. It makes no sense, man. Like, it makes no sense. We have so much wealth, so much stuff here, and we're always talking about our mental health and complaining. It's just like, Jesus, if you just went for a walk, or just went to the gym, like you'd feel completely different. Or if you did something instructive, and then you get around groups of people that they condone that shit, and that's the worst, because your environment really does shape you. And even as a grown man, even as an adult, like, I have to watch the things that I put into my mind. I have to watch the sort of people that I interact with. I have to watch the things that come out of my mouth and the conversations I have. I have to watch my behavior always, because it's never been easier to get distracted. It's never been easier to get off your game. It's never been easier to forget what your mission is. I really like these YouTube videos. I enjoy interacting with you guys. A couple of you guys hit me up in the comments. I really appreciate it. Please keep them coming, because I really do enjoy it. I appreciate that you're watching. But I want you to do well. I want myself to do well. I want people around me and people that interact with me doing well, because that only makes everybody else better. If people are always talking about their mental health and what's going on with them and their problems, it doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't solve any. Imagine if the guys that fought in World War I in trenches, and just so you guys know, like when they were fighting in the trenches, hundreds of thousands of people would die in the span of a month. Of men would die in the span of a month. Hundreds of thousands. I mean, the bottom of the Psalm, I think it's something like 600,000 men, 700,000 men in the span of a couple months. It was just crazy. And that was just one battle. I mean, millions and millions of soldiers died during that battle. Imagine if after the war, all they did was sit there and talk about their problems. Now, a lot of those guys had serious psychological issues, right? I mean, shell shock is a term that comes from that. But a lot of those guys still had to get on with life, man. Europe had to be rebuilt. It had to be repopulated. It's the same thing with World War II. And the damage was even more considered because there were more civilian casualties in World War II, right? Imagine if all those people, the people in London, were like, oh, I have too much trauma to rebuild fucking London. People in Prague, people in Russia, people in Germany. Oh, I have too much trauma to rebuild this place. It's crazy. Europe would still be in ruins. And I'm seeing this in America too. It's, you know, I had a conversation with somebody today. Actually, it was my landlord, and we were talking about sort of the degeneracy in the country, I think the psychological and spiritual pollution of the members of the populace. I mean, you see it in the culture, you see it in the music, you see it in the film, the television, you see it in everything. You see it in the news. And I don't know if it's a function of these institutions dying, which I think that they are. If you think about YouTube and the advent of people being independent producers and creators and not really having to worry about some sort of overarching authority or some studio or some music label, they can just put their music online and make money from it. I don't know where it's coming from, but I think that we as men, we don't have the luxury to sit there and just talk about our problems. You have to fix your problems, man. Like, bring it out into the open with trusted people, acknowledge them, but then you get on with it. Because I've fallen victim to this. I mean, I was in therapy for a long time, and it was just like, it didn't help me. Like, for a little bit, it uncovered certain things, but then I realized, I was like, this shit isn't helping me anymore, man. It's actually hurting me now, because I'm sitting here talking about the same thing over and over again. But what have I done differently? And I found myself from one year to the next in the same position because I didn't do anything different. I talked a good game, and I sat there on a couch or whatever. And, you know, the guy was great. A lot of those guys were great, and they had the best intentions. But then I realized, like, at the end of the day, I have to fix my own problems, man. This guy can only take me so far. He's immortal. He's amortal. He's not immortal. He's not a god. He doesn't have some sort of metaphysical power over me or over the universe and can change my situation. I'm the only one who can do it. And lately I've been watching the video by Andrew Tate. It's like the success, how to beat depression and achieve success in anything you want in life. It's like a 25 minute video. And I think it was the first video in the G mindset course, or maybe it's called the Iron Mind now. But anyway, one of my professors in HU 2.0, Andrew, said that when he was starting out in the war room, he would just watch the video over and over again. And I said, well, let me start doing that. And I realized in listening to the video, and there were a couple moments where I definitely had like some resistance to it. My ego started acting up, but I realized, like, first of all, this dude is right. And secondly, if this individual, right, take aside from the fact that I'm in HU 2.0, take aside from the fact that I've talked to some guys, professors that are in the war room, whatever, right? If I assume, if I at least ask the question, is what I'm thinking incorrect, or could it possibly be, right? I leave the possibility open for it. Then that leaves room for other ways of thinking to enter my mind. And for a long time, I didn't do that, right? Because I was on this perpetual cycle, this perpetual sort of rumination, and woe is me, and I'm a victim, and my mommy did this, and my daddy did that, and blah, blah, blah. And like, I couldn't move forward, and I didn't understand why I wasn't moving forward. And I wasn't moving forward because, one, I was on the same cycle, and two, because my ego would not allow these other messages to penetrate. And it was like yesterday or the day before yesterday where I watched Andrew Tate and I think it was some fitness guy. They like met in Dubai or something. Is it Max or Matt or something? He's another YouTuber. He's got like 1 million or something followers. But I watched that video and they were working out and they were hanging out and engaged. And I realized for the first time, I was like, wow, man, this is what healthy people look like when they interact. It's like a crazy thing to admit, right? because you think you're healthy psychologically, right? You think you're good. You think you got it all figured out. You think that you have you understand the way that things actually work, but you got to look at your environment, because if your environment is fucked up, clearly the way you're thinking is fucked up. The way your emotions are sort of linked together is not optimal. And that's a great indicator to know whether or not you're on the right path. Look at your bank account, look at your waistline, look at your health, look at the sorts of friends you have, look at the women you're hanging out with. Like, what is your environment like? Who are the sorts of people that you're interacting with? Because those are the people you're vibing with, you're vibrating, you're on the same plane. Andrew Tate says it all the time. You can't actually be in a place where you're uncomfortable. So whether that's at the height of success or in the hood, whatever, like, you know, in a trailer park or at the lower ends of the socioeconomic ladder, you cannot be in a place where you're uncomfortable. So you have one or two options, right? You can either continue to stay where you are, and I think in essence you spiral downward, or you change your vibration. And these videos and interacting with you guys and interacting with these guys on the podcasts is my attempt to change my vibration, my vibration, and move onto a higher plane, because what other choice do I have, right? I'm going to die. I'm a mortal being. I'm not going to live forever. But while I'm here, I want to have the best life possible. So that's what it is. But going back to the original point is, no one gives a shit about your mental health. It's not important. Like, if you're not, like I said again, if you don't have some sort of considerable psychiatric disorders, schizophrenia or bipolar or manic depressive, like, for real. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I'm bipolar or whatever. I'm talking about a doctor actually diagnosed you, and then another doctor and probably a third doctor determine, like, yes, you have this thing. This is what you need to do to mitigate this or to level this out. Then it's your mindset. Stop talking about your mental health. It's not helping you. It hasn't helped me. And the other thing is we don't talk as men. We do. We do, and we do, and we do, and we do. And if we're talking, it's something strategic. It's something that we're learning how to navigate the environment. We need to map the terrain. Okay, what's the best way to go about this? What's the best way to make this kind of money? What's the best way to execute this plan? That's why we talk. We might shoot the shit, we might joke, but there's always a purpose to it. There's always, we're getting to the next level, we're getting to the next marker, we're getting to, we're doing more, we're climbing, we're ascending. That's why we talk. We don't just sit around and talk about our feelings. That's a feminized way of existing. It's fine for women, but it's absolutely poisonous to men. It doesn't work. It doesn't help you. And this whole notion of vulnerability, I understand what they're trying to say with that, but I think it's actually misguided. I think a man should expose himself as opposed to being vulnerable or weak. And there's debate on that, right? But exposing yourself to the truth, exposing yourself to your shortcomings, acknowledging them, and then working on them, or meeting up with people who complement that in your life is really important. So if you're in a place right now where you're fucked up, you're not doing well, you feel like you have mental health issues or whatever, I'm telling you right now, you need to interact with different people, and you need to put yourself in a different environment. I would not advise you sit around and lament about all your issues ad infinitum, because there is a point where it starts to have a diminishing return. There are diminishing returns, and it has a detrimental effect on your psyche. So once again, this was a little bit, I guess less positive than the other ones, but it's something that was on my mind. It's something that I wanted to share with you guys because it's important, and I need the reminder because I'm living in an environment now, just in general, in the current environment now, it does not foster psychologically robust people. It doesn't. Victimhood is celebrated, and strength of character and strength of mind are, at the very least, met with indifference. At the very most, they're outright vilified, which is absurd. I never thought we'd get to this moment in history, but this is a test, And if you're listening to this, if you're on this corner of the internet, I think you're on the right side of history, even though it may not seem as if you are. But just keep doing what you're doing, keep grinding, and remember that you have the strength to do whatever it is you are meant to do. Of Heroes and Men, please like, share, and subscribe. Check your notifications. I'm going to have more podcasts, more of these videos. I'm in the process of moving right now, so it's kind of slowed down. But as soon as I get settled, which will be in the next week or two, I'm gonna be knocking these videos out like it's my job, which it is. So anyway, peace, guys. I'll talk to you soon.